Good morning. Gunay Evinch. Okay, I'm a second generation Turkish American born in Chicago, raised in San Francisco, and came out to Virginia for law school, and stayed after I did go and lived in Turkey for the first time in 1991 for 2 years in Ankara, and I researched the Armenian issue in Eastern Turkey and as well as anti-terror. At that time I was 29, and came back, started my law firm, and we'll be celebrating our 20th anniversary this year with David. David's a friend of mine from law school. We used to have a band in law school. He plays guitar, I play bass. I play guitar, he plays bass. And in our law school, and our school was a very conservative school. Everyone would dress preppy, and duck heads were the pants that we would all wear. These khaki pants, so our band's name was Darren and the Duckheads. Darren was our singer. And the motto was, the more you drink, the better they sound. So I wanted to ask, how many people from the Eastern Coast here? So about half. West Coast? Okay. And Midwest? 2 Midwest. Okay, great. I'm going to talk about, first of all, what we're going to really emphasize today is the Armenian issue. Before we get to the Armenian issue, I'm going to talk about the Turkish American Public Advocacy Network. And before I start that, I wanted to discuss with you the Armenian flag. The Armenian flag, there's 3 colors, and there's meanings to those colors. Orange stands for the Armenian culture, hard work. Blue stands for freedom and independence, and red stands for courage. And this is how the American public and the Armenians of Armenia and the Turks of Armenia view themselves when they think of these 3 colors. And I think it's good to know this self-perception, because we are constantly, as 2 communities, in communication with each other, and most of the time adversarial communication with one another. Before I get to that, I have to put in a plug-in for diversity in America and the Turkish experience. When I was fresh out of high school, in college, I wanted to start the Turkish Students Association. And according to our bylaws for the college, I needed 5 people to start the association. And there was only 2 Turks, myself and a friend of mine in chemistry. And he said, Gunay, do not bulash me into this mess. Bulash means like, don't smear me into this dirty work of politics and public service. And I'm just going to get my, it's expensive to study here. I'm going to get my chemistry degree, and I'm going to make a lot of money, chemical engineering or something, and that's it, And so I was left by myself, and I was kind of down about it. But I grew up with Italians in San Francisco. And my Italian friend said, that's okay, there's 4 Italians, 1 Turk, we can start the Turkish Students Association. And we'll make you the president, and John Benvenuto was the vice president. And very importantly, that's how we started our Turkish Students Association, with majority Italians and Italian Americans. And also, later in my life, I realized something very important in the Turkish saying, "Ne mutlu Türk'üm diyene." When Atatürk said that, it means, how proud, how good it is for the person who says he's a Turk. And the key word is "says," because Turkey has maybe 30 ethnic groups in there, and I think Atatürk was talking about citizenry. And so when he said "diyene," he didn't mean DNA. He meant the cultural solidarity. So basically, and to me, the best example of that kind of approach to life and solidarity and diversity is America, really. And that is how I was able to create this Turkish Students Association, because America said to its people, come on, come together, Italians, Turks, create a Turkish association. So this is, in a way, a message to you when you go back to your universities or to your graduate programs. I don't know how many undergrads are here, undergrads, great. And how many of you are involved in your Turkish Students Associations? Great. Get non-Turks into your association. How many are working on that? That's the best alışveriş in a way. All right, I'm going to talk about two things: the Turkish-American public advocacy system and the Armenian cause. Over the past roughly 10 years, what we've been developing, more so with David, since 2000, is solidarity within diversity among Turks of diverse backgrounds. And how we started this in 2000, in 1999, 2000, was we created the Anatolia Football Club in Maryland and in DC. And it had doctors, lawyers, plumbers, construction workers, esnaf, işçi, you name it, everyone. And we were kicked out of the league for the highest number of yellow cards and red cards. But it was fun. But at the institutional level with the Turkish American Associations, we were really advancing on this since around 2005. And now all the major Turkish American organizations are working together, including the mosques, the ATAA, the Federation, three major organizations. The Gülen movement is not a part of this because they have always decided throughout their history to do their own activities on their own. And the second is the public advocacy system I'm going to talk to you about has 4 dimensions to it. Okay. The first dimension is classical lobbying to influence legislation and policy. And for that we have the Assembly of Turkish American Associations, Federation of Turkish American Associations, Turkish American Community Centers, and independently the Gülenist organizations. And of course TCA, which is critical, the Turkish Coalition of America, which is a group of experts at a national level. The second dimension is campaign financing. What I realized over the past 20 years is if we just talk in Yahoo groups, complain about this and that, we will get nowhere. If we go to our member of Congress and say, so we're blue in the face, Turkey is so important, for this or that reason, they will listen, but they won't do much about it in terms of listening to the constituents. They will listen to the Turkish foreign mission and the Turkish lobbyists, and when the Turkish Defense Department comes here, the Defense Ministry comes here, and they will listen to that. But in terms of all of you as Turkish Americans, they won't listen to you as carefully as they would if the Turkish American community was providing campaign funds. Now this kind of runs contrary to the Turkish culture, because they say, well, that's a bribe. You give money, then they listen to you. But giving money in America is considered a freedom of speech right. It's regulated, but when you give money, you are speaking. So the PACs are critical. They are giving money now at a competitive level to campaigns. And as a person who's gone to Congress so many times, I have noticed since this activation of the Turkish American PACs that when I go into an office, it's like, ye kürküm ye. It's like there's a Turkish Nasrettin Hoca thing saying that I'm feeling that we are more important because, according to the Puritan work ethic and the American way of advancing in life, we are putting money where our mouths are. Talk less, do more. So, money where your mouth is. So that brings me to a question I always want to ask. The Turkish American Associations now are thinking about doing a promotion that each one of you, Turkish Americans, give $20.23 to your favorite Turkish American organization per month. 2023 symbolically meaning the 100th centennial of the Turkish Republic. And And I wanted to ask you, does that sound reasonable? $20, about $20 a month going to your favorite Turkish association through your MasterCard, Visa card, American Express. I know that I spend more than that per day on something I can give up. But I just wondered, if you're looking deep inside yourself, is it something that you can give up per month for the cause you believe in? Third, judicial advocacy. About 1989, I finally got an appointment with the Turkish embassy to say, Turkey's weak in the political arena on Capitol Hill, but where it can be strong is in the legal arena, where the analysis is a little bit more objective. Campaign financing is not going to affect it as much, votes are not going to affect it, but reasoning and analysis under the law is going to affect it. And there we may have a stronger voice. And that took a while. It took until about 15 years later that the Turkish Republic said, okay, let's look at these issues from a legal perspective. And importantly, as a pioneer of this concept, the Turkish Coalition of America established the Turkish American Legal Defense Fund. Now I'll get to some of the cases that we've undertaken with the TALDF with David Saltzman's leadership. And finally, cultural diversity. When I was a kid, I remember my parents saying, political bulaşmak not necessary. We have the best baklava in the world, and that was that. And best folk dancing, and we will save ourselves and promote ourselves and be loved because of this. And of course, Korea, the Korean War. It wasn't true at all. When Turkey finally intervened in Cyprus in 1974 to stop the ethnic cleansing that was occurring against the Turks on that island. And Turkey was in the right in doing this. We noticed here on the capital that Turkey came out to be the bad guy. And that it didn't quite matter. And then there was an arms embargo against Turkey that was issued. And so we said, wow, no matter how right you are, you still have to be persuasive. And that baklava and folk dancing and festivals were not enough. And now, with lobbying, PACs, and, by the way, PACs are separate corporate entities. Those who lobby cannot give money to PACs. Those who do PAC work cannot do lobbying. And thirdly, judicial activism. With these three, now we know that baklava and folk dancing can be influential. It's the human face of our identity. That's why the Turkish festival is very important. About 20,000 people come to it. It's the leading festival in Washington, D.C. Same for other festivals, Turkish local chapter festivals. ATAA has 60 local chapters. Federation has 40 local chapters. The Turkish American Community Center has 19 local chapters. Each of them are doing cultural activity, the local chapters. And now we're going to the local chapters for political activism and PAC contributions. Now, I'm going to go to my, and this may be why, one of the reasons why you may be interested in the Turkish American cause is public service. It was definitely my interest, but how my interest was piqued is when I came home from school one day and I saw my mom and her best friend crying in front of the television, and my best friend's very good friend, Kemal Arikan, had just been assassinated in Los Angeles, the consul general. And I wasn't aware of this conflict that was just starting to brew, in which terrorism would cost more than 70 lives and injure more than 700 people and cost hundreds of millions of dollars of property damage in the world. And so from there on, I took an interest in the Armenian matter, which eventually, with a Fulbright scholarship, brought me to Turkey to study the Armenian matter in the East. And my hope is that through more dialogue and more freedom of speech and more debate on this, we will reach a we will reach a narrative that satisfies both sides of this disagreement. David's going to go into that with his discussion on civil liberties. The Armenian cause before 1975 was mostly resolutions referring to massacres. The Armenian cause after 1975, with the starting of Armenian terrorism, started to look into resolutions that use the word genocide. These are federal resolutions that I'm talking about, not just states. The objective of the resolutions is to cause recognition of the events as genocide, then go for reparations, then go for restitution of land. 3 R's. In Turkish, toprak, tazminat, and tanımak, toprak, tazminat. In 1974, what started was a serious campaign to bring attention to the Armenian cause, but also an effect of it was to quiet everyone, silence everyone, including academicians. The vast majority of people who would qualify as expert witnesses on this matter as historians of the Ottoman Empire do not agree that the Armenian case constitutes genocide, but the terrorism and the academic harassment has resulted in many of these people just becoming quiet, silent, just for their own physical well-being, their safety, as well as their peace of mind. This kind of breaks down the Armenian terrorism, which I broke down for you in terms of deaths, injuries, and damage. There have been 6 federal resolutions that have been successful, 6 that succeeded. And those all refer to the Armenian case as massacres. There have been 8 that have failed because they have referred to the Armenian case as genocide. When they were referring to massacres, there was really no action from Turkey, the Turkish Republic, the Genel Kurmay, the General Staff, or from the Turkish American community. But as soon as it got to the point where we're talking about a crime, massacres is just like murder. Crime is like first degree or involuntary manslaughter. When the resolutions decided to define the homicides as a crime, that's when people started to get interested from the Turkish side. The Turkish-Armenian dispute and conflict has been going on for a long time, and I wasn't sure whether you knew about the deeper history, but here are 11 multilateral deliberations on the Armenian matter, going back all the way to the Scandinavian Commission of Inquiry that the British stopped, then the Indian Muslim Commission of Inquiry, which the British stopped. The British wanted the Turks to try them, to criminally try themselves, and that's why we had the 1919 courts martial and the Malta tribunals of also 1919. And what we're learning now is like the Ankara Agreement gave a certain amount of money from the Turkish Republic to the United States to distribute to Armenians that had left Armenia, the Ottoman Empire, to the United States. The United Nations took up the Armenian issue, and Whitaker, who we found later was a pro-Armenian reporter, but at that time didn't reveal himself as such, wrote a report in the footnote of which he tried to squeeze in the Armenian case as a case of genocide. The United Nations did not accept that report because of that footnote, and what it decided to do diplomatically was to say, we shall receive this report. Receive versus accept, very important in legal language and UN language, and it was a polite rejection of the report. For some reason, by some aberration, the Armenian American lobby looked at that as an acceptance, and when they said that the UN accepted the Armenian case as genocide, Then the United Nations spokesperson came out twice and said that is not true. David and I were a part of the Turkish Armenian Reconciliation Commission, TARC, with the late Ambassador Gunay Evinch. And that was an experience because there was only one Armenian left on the other side. Everyone else had left due to death threats from Armenian extremists against them. And as much as we talked about whether this is genocide or not under the UN Convention, the panel of judges, so to speak, said, pretty much to me, Mr. Evinch, everyone has to come out to be a winner in this case. So regardless of all this analysis, we know what we're going to say. And we're going to say that this is genocide, and we're going to say Turkey's not responsible. It's the Ottoman Empire. David and my position is that we don't plea bargain. We have no reason to plea bargain. If I've done something wrong, I'm totally able to handle it. If I've done something right, I'm not going to say I did something wrong. So basically, this is not a used car sales gimmick. We're talking about the accusation, conviction of a whole people. I separated the law cases from the UN and reconciliation commissions. But here you'll see a mixture of three types of law cases where Turkey or Turkish interests are on the defense. And they are in the categories of the Armenian issue, and with growing intensity, a coalition with pro-PKK and pro-Greek interests. We won all the pro-PKK cases thus far, meaning the Turkish interests were defended fully on that and successfully. And we won all our Greek Cyprus cases. And thus far we've won all our Armenian cases as well. But importantly, Dr. from Ankara University, American University had mentioned federalism. United States foreign policy on the Armenian issue is not to characterize the events as genocide. And Movsesian, the first case I mentioned up here, says that a California law defining it as genocide and creating extending a statute of limitations, zaman aşımı, to file cases against an insurance company on that basis is invalid, is unconstitutional. It interferes with U.S. foreign policy. It interferes with the merkez hükümet, merkez devlet, the central government's, the federal government's position on how to deal with this issue. California cannot have its own foreign policy, so to speak. And that's a very important case. All right, we already talked about the Italians. So, but finally, I'm finalizing and let David talk about the cases on civil rights. Why we are doing this as Turkish Americans and maybe as you is we do want truth and reconciliation, first of all. We do want free debate and discussion. We all want to know our own history. And we want it to be done in a fair and complete way. We want to protect you, our youth, from being branded as, in the political arena, of the crime of having committed the crime of genocide. But more importantly, to me, at a personal level, selfish level, I want to make sure my kids are also my children, your children, their grandchildren, are also not unfairly, illegally convicted of this crime. So that's why my next picture is Arda, my boy, and Lara. And this picture is important because if you do decide 1/7 of Turkish American students stay in the United States, 1/7 of them, you're going to get married, you're going to have children, you may adopt children, you're going to start families. And I think you will be a strong Turkish American if you are a strong American. You must be fully integrated into this society, fully engaged in parent-teachers associations, neighborhood soccer teams. I know all you guys like soccer, despite the fact that Turkey lost 2-1 to Czech Republic yesterday. In Istanbul, it was probably Fenerbahce Stadium, and I know, but you guys can be coaches of your neighborhood soccer teams. So there's so many ways to be involved at the community level to show your kids you are a part of this country, you are a part of this people. There's nothing that can keep you from excelling in this community, in this country. And I thank my dad and my mom for saying that to me all the time. They would say in Turkish, never in English. It was a rule at home. We always spoke Turkish. And it was strictly enforced. My dad would say, "Ne duyuyorum?" And I'm like, oh, and then my brother and I would start speaking Tarzanic Turkish to each other, like fumbling through the language. He would say, there is no difference between you and the man or the boy and the girl sitting next to you in class. You can be number one in your class. You can be the president of your school. You can be the president of the country. This is the country where dreams come true if you work hard, ethically, and you are a kind human being. Truth and justice for all. This was Selahattin, little Kurdish boy, who showed me around Van during my Fulbright research. And that day, Van is very important because that's where the big revolt occurred. And the entire Muslim and Jewish quarters were decimated and everyone was killed. About 40 to 60,000 Muslims in the Van Vilayet were destroyed in the Armenian revolt of March 1915. So Selahattin, whose ancestors survived or were killed in that revolt, still lives in a Kurdish village close to the Van Castle of Urartu, the citadel. So after he showed me, I gave him 50 lira. This is back in 1993. He's probably a man now with family. And I said, give this to your mother. And he said, my mother died. And I said, give it to the oldest woman in your family or in your village. Do not give it to the men, because they're all at the coffee house. All the women are in the field. All the girls are in the field. And so, again, what I want to come to as I finish is, if you're interested in advocacy of your heritage, please make sure you visit all parts of Turkey. Talk to the people, touch them, hug them, listen to them, and understand them, and make sure you're totally immersed in the issues, in the history, and the feelings of the people. And I think then when you come to the battlefield of public advocacy, like in Capitol Hill or at your state's city councils or your education commissions or your state capitals, then I think you feel the energy of their trust in you. When I went to Artvin, I noticed that the city is up on a hill and the school's at the skirts of the hill. It's a mountain. The school is at the skirts of the mountain. All the kids walk down to the school about a mile. After school, they all walk up. And everyone in Artvin has calves like this big in their legs. And I remember in a village in Artvin, an old lady who was the ATAA, which is the ATAA means like the landlord of the village, said to me, Oğlum, and he said, she's in my arm, he goes, Oğlum, when you go back to Ankara, tell them that when our school's roofs leak, we fix it. When our telephone poles fall, we fix them. When our streets are destroyed, we fix them. Can we get some kind of attention to us here in the Northeast? It seems like the Southeast is getting all the attention. And we deserve attention too. So again, when you go to Turkey, listen, feel, and hear everybody, and with their dependence on you, advocate for them and advocate for your heritage. That concludes my presentation. David's going to talk about civil rights.